He was supposed to be the bridge between worlds, the last hope of humanity, the chosen one. But what if I told you Aang, the beloved hero of Avatar, the Last Airbender, failed at his mission? Not just once, not just in battle, but at the one thing only the Avatar could do. And because of that failure, the world paid the price. Let's break down how Aang failed as the Avatar and why nobody wants to admit it. Now don't get it twisted. We love Aang. He's fun, he's wise, he dances with dragons. But let's take the nostalgia goggles off for a second. Being the Avatar isn't about winning cool fights or riding sky bisons. It's about balance, maintaining peace across nations, and sometimes making the hardest choice, even when it breaks you. And that is where Aang fell short. 1. The Great Runaway. One storm, one cowardly choice. Aang's downward spiral starts long before the iceberg. At 12, he discovers his avatarhood decades early, pressure no kid deserves. Instead of seeking guidance from the monks or the previous avatar's followers, he vanishes into a blizzard with Appa, driven by fear of responsibility. That impulsive flight becomes the single most consequential absconding in world history. While Aang naps in ice, Fire Lord Sozin launches full-scale genocide of the air nomads, Aang's own people. Had Aang stayed, Avatar Roku's allies could have spirited him away, or at least coordinated defense. Instead, the air temples fall, leaving Aang the sole survivor and the world without an avatar for 100 years. Takeaway: Aang's very first decision as Avatar triggers the chain reaction he ultimately spends the series trying to fix. That's not heroic, it's self-inflicted apocalypse. 2. A Century of Silence. How many nations suffered without an avatar? An avatar's job is to maintain balance. Aang's absence gifts Fire Nation imperialists uninterrupted expansion, culminating in the near eradication of the Southern Water Tribe, colonization of Earth Kingdom territories, and the razing of countless forests for military factories. Scholars estimate tens of millions of casualties. Look at canon hints, burned villages, refugee caravans, and sandbender deserts. In the Promise comics, we learn Fire Nation colonies are deeply entrenched, hurting Earth Kingdom culture even after Ozai's fall. Every displaced family, lost library scroll, and burnt spirit forest stems from one missing guardian for 100 years. Aang's Ice Age isn't a noble time skip. It's a vacuum that made Sozin's Comet strategy possible. 3. Pacifism versus pragmatism. Sparing Ozai's life, extending suffering. Fans applaud Aang's refusal to kill Fire Lord Ozai, praising his steadfast pacifism. But energy-bending a dictator into powerlessness raises ethical nightmares. What stops Ozai loyalists from engineering a coup to re-empower their God King? In fact, the Smoke and Shadow comics show lingering Ozai cultists, kidnapping children and destabilizing Fire Nation politics years later. Had Aang followed the Lion Turtle's backup plan, kill or subdue in stone, he'd remove a lightning rod of fanaticism. Instead, he gambles on a power he barely understands, energy bending, which nearly consumes him if Ozai's spirit resists. One slip, and the Avatar cycle ends. The world's guardian risks entire equilibrium for a personal credo learned in a monastery now wiped from existence. Moral calculation. One tyrant's life weighed against untold future casualties. Aang chooses ideology over security, painting a target on every future Avatar, forced to deal with Ozai's fan club. 4th, spirit world neglect. Angry spirits and neglected portals. While Aang trains bending forms, the spirit world falls into chaos. Remember Heibai attacking an Earth Kingdom village, Shu the Face Stealer roaming free, or Ko's threat to Aang's reincarnations? These aren't one-off Monster of the Week cameos. They're symptoms of spiritual imbalance the Avatar is tasked to mend. After the war, Aang establishes Republic City, but the legend of Korra reveals he never reopened the spirit portals or forged formal ties with the spirits. Korra inherits a fractured reality where dark spirits rampage, forcing her into life-threatening harmonic convergence. Aang's half-measure spiritual diplomacy kicks the can down the timeline again. 5. Training shortcuts. Bending mastery or crash course. Traditional Avatar training spans years per element, but World on Fire urgency compresses Aang's syllabus into 12 months. He masters water, earth, and fire, just enough to survive. But the finale shows him nearly losing to Ozai until the Avatar state Deus Ex Machina kicks in. Katara, Toph, and Zuko, all teenagers, carry heavy lifts Aang should have handled, blocking Azula's lightning, healing fatal wounds, or humbling the Dai Li. In comics, Aang routinely leans on friends for breakthrough. Toph offers metal-bending lessons he never fully adopts. Zuko drags him into post-war politics he barely comprehends. Imagine if Aang had spent those missing 100 years training under each nation's masters. He'd wield unmatched finesse rather than improvisational trick shots. 6th Republic City, Noble Vision or Colonization, 2.0. At first glance, Republic City looks utopian, benders and non-benders cohabiting. But Legend of Korra Season 1 shows the city rife with inequality, triad gangs, exploited non-benders, and corporate bending matches. Anti-bending terrorist Aemon rises from that resentment. Whose dream created this powder keg? Avatar Aang's. By centering Fire Nation colonies inside Earth Kingdom lands, Republic City becomes a melting pot forged without adequate representation. Aang's charisma secures initial peace, but after his death, the city's foundation cracks, birthing anti-bending extremism, capitalist corruption, and spirit machine hybrids run amok. The political fallout ends on Korra's shoulders. Again, an avatar cleaning Aang's unfinished business. 7. Family fallout, air nomad repopulation crisis. Aang's priority post-war is rebuilding the air nomads, yet he fathers only 3 children, 1 airbender, 2 non-air. His devotion to Tenzin's training sidelines the others, breeding resentment and sibling fractures. See Korra flashbacks. Instead of establishing global air nomad academies, Aang places all cultural revival hopes on a single nuclear family. The result? By Korra's era, airbenders are an endangered microclan until harmonic convergence randomly reawakens airbending genes. A near-extinction event for an element is bad math for a guardian entrusted with world balance. 8. Counter-arguments, and why they still point to failure. But Aang was a child thrust into war. True, yet Avatar Kyoshi instituted harsh justice at 16, and her reign lasted centuries of stability. He ended the war peacefully. Peace built on unaddressed trauma often cracks, hence Yakon's blood-bending reign and Kuvira's militarism later. Energy bending was enlightened for Aang, but unsustainable for the Avatar system. Future avatars can't rely on lion turtle tutorials. Korra nearly dies mastering it on the fly. When every rebuttal ends with Korra had to fix it, you've proven the thesis. Aang's half measures haunt his successors. 9. Lessons buried in the monastery. Rubble breaking down. Aang's failures isn't avatar bashing. It's recognizing leadership truths and avoidance explodes. Later, running from duty magnifies problems exponentially. Ideals versus outcomes. Pacifism feels noble, but leaders must weigh it against collective safety. Short-term wins, long-term costs. Quick fixes invite future crises. Republic City, spirit and balance. Legacy planning matters. If your mission ends with your lifespan, you haven't truly solved the root. Recognizing these patterns arms us to judge real-world leaders and ourselves by results, not intention. If this breakdown made you side-eye Aang's next cheerful grin, glider twirl that like button, subscribe for more animated truth bombs, and drop the most questionable Aang decision you remember in the comments. Let's keep bending nostalgia and unmasking the stories beneath the sky bisons. Because even the world's greatest heroes cast shadows when you chase the light all the way to the spirit portal.